Well, hello everybody. How you doing? Dave Fennoy here. Another Wednesday evening, and here we are with Ask Dave Fennoy Anything. And of course, the kind of joke is that usually I'm asking other people things. We talk to some of the best voice actors in the world, sometimes agents, sometimes people who are experts with equipment, but it's all information and it's all for you. Before we get started, this and all the other Ask Dave Fennoy Anythings live on my YouTube channel, Dave Fennoy VoiceOver Training. Please visit, like, and subscribe. All of the previous ADFAs are there. You can go back, and if there was a particular show you liked, you can find it, and boom, there it is. Also, not only am I a voice actor, I'm a voiceover educator. And if you are interested in voiceover coaching with me, davefennoy.com. There's a study VO tab at the top. You can book yourself and we can get you going. Also, if you'd like to follow me, at Dave Fennoy VO. So, all that said, let's say hello to our guest, Miss Tish Hicks. Hey, Tish, how are you?
I'm good, Dave. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm
It's
so happy
good.
to have you here, and we were talking a little bit before we got started, and we used to run into each other from time to time back in
Yeah.
the olden days before everybody had a home studio.
hmm
And I think the last time I saw you was at VO Atlanta.
Yes, we were both there. It was the first time I had been back to VO Atlanta in person since pre-pandemic. Um, the VO Dojo, which is my training company, was there in 2022. I was in Maui helping with a family emergency,
Mm.
so I was like, I can't come, guys. I'm here. I'm not from Maui, but my brother was living there, and so yeah, being back at VOA for the first time in a super long time this year was really awesome and
Yeah,
getting to see
excellent,
everyone.
excellent, excellent. But let's turn the clock back. Um, you've been doing
Decade.
this. You've been doing this for 30-ish years, little more, little less.
Yep,
And
last year. Mhm, mhm.
uh, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Oh, last year was the 30th year. Well, I guess this year is officially the 30th year.
Well, about
Somewhere
30
in.
years. The
Yeah, yeah.
the more it is, the less specific we have to be.
I'm just trying to think. I moved from Chicago. I moved from Chicago to LA in 1994. In October, the big earthquake was in January, and I moved in October. And I had booked my first spots in Chicago um, before I moved. So yeah, I had studied theater at Northwestern and stayed in the city and was doing all the things you do after you get a theater degree. I was working at Second City in
I'm
the
about to
box
say
office.
Second City.
Yeah, I was working at Second City in the box office with like John Favreau, Colbert. Like I was at Second City when all the people who are now talk show hosts
Famous
and
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 rich and
stars.
thought
Yeah,
leaders. And
but we were taking reservations and good tables and stuff like that. And then I studied improv there. I'm a trained opera singer, so I was doing my opera. I was doing regional Shakespeare. I worked at a swanky jazz club as a waitress, and then I do interpret it like spoken word, like read poems and stuff in between sets. So I was doing all of those things, and um, my then boyfriend, now husband's best friend, worked at Leo Burnett, the giant advertising
oh yeah.
agency. And he called up one day and said, "Hey, I have some spots for Bally Total Fitness. I think you'd be good for." And I was like, "You going to come in?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, okay, cool."
So what you're saying is voiceover found you. You didn't find voiceover.
In some ways, well, how you spend so much money and spend 4 years at a fancy pants theater program and nobody tells you about voiceover makes me bananas. I
You know,
sometimes go back
let's
to
address that.
classes.
Why do you think that
Mhm.
is?
Well, I think there is more that's happening. Um, I think that
Do you think it's
I think
because voiceover then? I think it's very respected now, and every other person you meet would like to knock on the door and come on in.
yeah,
Uh, but I remember 1980s when I was going into
hmm
radio and discovered voiceover, and it was kind of a surprise for me too. And how can I not know about this when I hear it every day? I had
yeah,
also been a theater major for a while before I switched over to music, uh, and nobody ever talked about commercials, voiceover, that kind of thing.
yeah.
Why do you think that is? And it's changed now.
I think it has changed. Well, here's one of the things. So I always talk about voiceover being an art form that serves commerce. And then how that the once you get that going, then that commerce serves your art form. So I think sometimes when you're in a place like a university setting, particularly a bunch of years ago, it was about the art and the art form, and people forgot to teach you about that it's a business, right? Now I go back and teach master classes at Northwestern, and I say, hey kids, love theater, like eating, try voiceover, um, because it really is necessary. And I don't know. I think that there's a little bit, like you said, it's a little bit more savvy about how do we make a life in the arts that allows us to make a living in the arts as well.
So, well, let me ask you now. So, this guy from Leo Burnett, friend of your
Mhm.
husband, says, "Hey, look, I think you'd be great for this." What was that session like? And is that when the light bulb went off for VO?
Oh yes. Oh yes. Like I left so the session was great. It was fun. And it was easy because I had all the skills. Like I it wasn't like I was going to not know what, I didn't know what to do, but I was ready to do what needed to be done, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense. And I left that session going, this this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm here for. Everything that I've ever done as a performer suddenly makes total sense. I got paid and I got Taft Hartley'd. Yes, this is it. So within the next 6 months, I had a fork in the road. I had been accepted at Alabama Shakespeare Festival for their graduate program, where you get stipend and you get paid.
Down in
And
Alabama, to
yeah,
be
it's in
or not
Montgomery.
to be? That is the question. Sorry, sorry, Alabamians.
I'm not sure if it's still there, but it was a pretty prestigious thing. And I was working on Shakespeare that summer, like a show, doing a production 12th night, and rewatching the Peter Barton playing Shakespeare series. And I was watching it, and I went, "Wait a minute! Every single person who is in this RSC thing at the highest level of anything you could ever conceive of doing Shakespeare at is in Hollywood doing TV and film." I was like, wait a minute, let's cut to the chase. So made the decision to come out to LA. My husband's a screenwriter, so it made sense for everybody. But when I arrived, I was like, voiceover. What do you know? Who do you know? What should I do? How do I do this? And then I had those communities of people that I had connection with. So everyone from Second City was there, everyone from Chicago was there, everyone from Northwestern was there. So I had all of these communities of people to be in connection with,
Yeah.
who were a little bit ahead of me. Mhm.
How did you get your first agent in LA?
Oh, that's a beautiful story. When I first arrived, I took a class with a wonderful woman named Dolores Deal,
Ah,
who,
I know Dolores, or knew Dolores Steele.
yeah, yeah. And so, sometimes as I get older, I'm like, oh no, I'm the kooky old lady teaching voiceover. But Dolores had a really lovely overview class, and she brought a guest in at the end, and it happened to be Marla Rubin, who ran the booth at ICM. And so in that class, I raised my hand, as I am wont to do, always raising my hand and saying, "Hey," um, and I said, "So I know this is a journey, but when I'm ready, what would I do to get copy for a demo and things?" And she said, "Well, you're good. When you're ready, give me a call. At the end of the day, this was 94, 95. She said, at the end of the day, I have a box of Xerox. I have a box under the Xerox machine with all the copy from the day. Let me know when you're ready, and we'll go through it." And I was like, at that point, I was like, me come to ICM? Okay. And then for those of you who weren't alive 30 years ago, ICM then became DPN. Which is still
And
around in Little.
I remember that time. I came in 1990 to LA, leaving a career in radio to do voiceover. And you could get copy from an agent if you had an agent. I was a lucky person too. I had been invited to come down after taking a course up in San Francisco. Um, but I remember back then, they would often tell you, well, look, get a magazine, find the ads. The same ads that are on television or radio are right there. All the words, you can use those magazines to put together the copy for your demos. Uh, wow, I haven't thought about that in a long time. You just brought that back to me after so long. So
Yeah.
it sounds to me like you were able to get established in the voiceover community pretty quickly.
Well, actually, a little caveat, because when I was ready to make my demo, I did go meet with Marla, and she did help me. And then I went and I coached with, when I felt I was ready. I did a session with Cindy Akers at Voice Tracks West. And she did me the biggest favor of my career, really, because I was on the path for, like 9 months, almost a year. And I thought, okay, I'm ready. And she did me the biggest favor of my career, because she said, you know what? You are 98% ready, and I'm not going to make your demo,
Whoa.
because you
I
have to
need
be
that
100.
2%.
You need to be 110%. You need to be 130% ready to be in this game at this level. And so what she did, she referred me to Kathy Kelmanson's Working Pro class that you usually would have to have a demo and agent representation to be in. She said, this person is ready to roll. She just needs this. And I went back to the drawing board for 6 months and
Hmm.
went, okay, I'm
Now
not
let me
ready.
ask you this: you were already doing some work. Um, you've already been signed, right?
No, no, no. I
Oh, you
haven't been
hadn't been
signed.
signed.
This was
Okay.
I met Marla to be prepared.
What did you learn with Kathy Kalmanson? But once again, we're going back to one of the pillars of voiceover
Yeah.
training in Los Angeles. Um,
Hmm.
the Kalmansons were here when I got here in '90.
Hmm.
So, what did you learn? What made the difference that added that 2%, well, actually 12%, to bring you to the 110%?
Right. Well, I mean, all during that year of arriving, I was studying, I was working, I was doing workout groups, I was doing all the things. I wasn't just sitting, but I was taking classes and doing private coaching and all those things. I think I think one of the things that it was just that in between boost of confidence, right? And so in one ways it was like, what? I'm not there yet. But just being recognized and go, you're not there yet, and you are on your way. And now let's put you in the room, let's put you at this level of the people who are working at this level. So that confidence of knowing it was right there, and that flipping over into working pro was right there. And it took a little bit more time and a little bit more humility, right? Okay. And then after those 6 months, and I did my first demo with the Kalman Center. I don't think they do demos anymore, but I had this working relationship with them already. They knew me a little bit, so I did my first demo, and then it was an awesome demo, and it was something that they used as an example of, like, this is an awesome demo. And I took it back to Marla, and ICM passed, but
Oh,
she passed it on to Nancy Wilson, who was just starting at Abrams Rubel Florence. And so Nancy Wilson was my first agent at Abrams Rubel Florence, and then it began,
how
and so it began.
interesting that the person who was your hero, the person who was, hey, go take this, you get the demo, and then she says, well, we're we're gonna pass. Perhaps it was that thing you do here. We have some people who are very much in the same category you're in, um,
Yeah.
and that happens a lot. A lot of
Hmm.
people think that when an agent turns you down and says, "Well, we have enough people in the category that you fall in," uh, uh, sometimes it feels like it's an excuse. They just
Hmm.
didn't want to hurt my feelings, but sometimes they're telling you the truth.
Right. and
Yeah,
and sometimes when you're coming, when you're coming to an agency that is working at the highest levels, it might be that you just need a little bit more seasoning, a little bit more to jump in the game there, right?
yeah,
It doesn't mean it doesn't mean don't ask. It doesn't mean don't knock on the doors. Don't
yeah.
present yourself.
So what was your first big break?
Oh, well, there's like my career for the first 15 years was a kind of a series of uh, building, right? I got a first campaign for a small, like a regional hospital in Kansas City, and then I I really became, I sort of became, I don't know, muse sounds a little arrogant or self-important, but I started a working relationship with a young copywriter. Not, I wasn't in a relationship. We had a, like, working
Yeah, working
relationship.
relationship.
Yeah, I didn't sleep my way to the top. No, but there's a young copywriter at Saatchi and Saatchi when it
Big
was like
agency.
the tech boom, the .com boom, and he had all of these campaigns, and he was just like, I like your voice, and on these things, you really embody it. So I got a lot of work that way. Then I had a big Burger King campaign, and then I think my biggest break was when I became the voice of Citibank, which which was huge. It happened it was really interesting how it unfolded, because it was at the beginning of 2001, early in
So we're talking
2001.
about you came in '94 and you
Yeah,
studied some more for 6 months a year, finally
yeah,
got an agent. So we're now in '95, '96.
yeah. 90.
And
It was
and
95. We got
you're
married in
having a gig
96.
here, having a gig there, having a gig
Well,
here,
it
having
wasn't. It wasn't only gigs. It was campaigns. It was
okay,
campaigns.
okay,
It
good.
was. It wasn't. It was like littler campaigns, then a bigger campaign, and the bigger campaign, and then a bigger campaign that lasted for longer. Right. So
Yeah,
it was campaigns. It wasn't just a spot here and there. It was building. I was making my living. I was making my living, like, probably within a year and a half.
yeah,
I remember really distinctly being at the end of my first year at Abrams Rubloff, going, next year is six-figure year, like in my Christmas card.
yeah.
Um, and then it was. So yeah, that's Yeah, very much so. And then the interesting thing about Citibank was the first spots. The first spots were it was the theme of the first spots were just because you have the power doesn't mean you need to use it. And the themes of the first spots early in 2001, mind you, were a joke about buildings imploding and too many rescue heroes getting a cat out of a tree. So it was good. I was so when 9/11 came, I was like, okay, is this the end of the world? And I don't think those spots are going to run. And somehow we made it through that, and I ended up being one of the first women voices on a financial services thing at that time. And then it ended up being I was the voice of Citibank for 7 years.
You know,
The
that's so true. I remember early in my career, and that's when you really start paying attention, especially to commercials and what the voices are, what style voices. And I remember listening to uh, another bank. I was Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo. We're big. We're old. We're starty.
we're
And
many. We've got you.
we've got you. Rah. And then they had some legal problems and things. Hi, we're Wells Fargo. We want to be with you. Yeah. Uh, a big change. One of the things I learned early on with commercials was don't just ask, well, who am I in this commercial and who am I talking to, but why this commercial? What is the reason
Mhm.
this is the message? And when you can really get into that, the core of what they're really trying to say, you're
Mhm.
going to be much more successful in being heard.
Yeah. Well, and I think, you just said they at the VO Dojo, we have a way of thinking that there is no they, there's only we. So when you get a piece of copy, you are
Mm.
part of the solution. You are joining that team. You send in your audition, you are the solution. Great. Now you're in that session when, what has happened to get that piece of copy in front of you is that someone 3 years ago wined and dined a client to get the client, and then everybody busted their butts to come up with the campaign ideas, the pitches. There used to be a show on AMC called The Pitch. I don't know if you can find it anymore, but it was like a reality TV show about ad agencies pitching things.
Mm.
That, and then someone had to write this piece of copy. It needed to be approved by legal, and then you get it, and when you're done with it, the engineer is going to pop it into place, and it's going to be on the air,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So when we get it, we're just the cherry on top. We're just like, I always
We're,
say,
we're
it's
one of the
like,
last pieces of the
exactly,
puzzle.
I say we're like mankind on the geological time frame. We're the last
Yes.
hair's breadth of
Yeah.
what we do.
You know, I
um
don't want to lose that thing you said that I think is very important, that I'm going to take to heart when I'm auditioning for commercials now. Not, oh, I'm hopefully what they want, da 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 da. It's we. I am part of this. I am going to think of myself, and I'm saying this like this so everybody else will start thinking of themselves as part of the
mhm.
project when they're doing the audition. Uh,
Yes,
Mindset, so important,
exactly,
so important.
exactly. Yeah.
So you had a lot. What was the biggest heartbreak you had in that period? Something that you got and then you didn't get.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting because Citibank lasted so long and so strong. And when you get a big campaign like that, you can get a big cushy butt because it's just like da, 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 da. So it's really interesting because in 2008,
The
a couple
crash.
things. Yes, a couple things happened at my agency where my longtime agent, because from Abrams Rubloff, I went to Abrams Artists, and my longtime agent, Mark Quinn, who helped me build my career, was always there. He left, and I got a call from William Morris. I didn't know it was a poaching call at the time because I didn't know Mark was leaving, but it was a poaching call. Um, so when they called, I was like, I think I'm happily okay. And then everything fell apart. So then I was like, well, okay, this might be a good time to go to one of the bigger agencies that definitely I had many campaigns. There was every reason that I should be
Somebody would
there.
want you. Somebody would take you.
Yeah, and it was interesting because it was just at this really awkward time. And so at that moment in time, everything that had always been like, oh, and then it was like da 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 and da 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 and bigger and longer, la la la. For the first time in my career, it didn't happen. Um, I was 7 months pregnant. The way things worked at William, my first kid was like in the booth with me at the agency when he was 2 weeks old. Like kids were, no, he was quiet, but he was there at the agency. It was very kid friendly. This wasn't as kid friendly. It had a great vibe to it, but it was not a pregnant lady with mom. And it just turned out to be not the right fit for me at that time. And I say that now because, interestingly enough, who am I with? Eric Seastrand is one of my managers at ACM now. So you don't know how it's going to happen. But at that
But you know,
time,
people are what we connect with. I mean, we may name the
yes.
company, but there's going to be a culture there made up of a bunch of people and perhaps really fostered by those at the top. But we can still
Hmm.
meet our people, maybe in that where maybe we're not that comfortable, but it's people we connect with. So when that person goes someplace else, now you move and you're in a place where you are more comfortable because they're more comfortable.
Right, right. And, in that case, many years later, the whole concept of William Morris's scale department dissolved. So, there was a big shift there. But at the time, it was the first time when I came back from having the baby. I was like, hey, what's up with Citibank? And, they said, oh, well, our client across the street, Forrest Whitaker, is doing some stuff for them. And I'm like, okay, um, cool that your Academy Award winning client across the street has the campaign, but you might want to give the person who has had it for 7 years, a call or something.
Yeah.
And so it was the first, and then I was like, okay, but I wasn't worried because it always was the next thing. At that time, I was doing demos for Geico. Oh, not Geico. I'm sorry, not Geico. What is it? Flow. Progressive. I was
Ah,
doing
yeah.
demos for Progressive that turned out to be not Flow, right? But it was just one of those things that if I had done a different demo and was the voice of Progressive with that Flow campaign, uh, you know, I I would I would have just my butt would be even bigger and even cushier, right? Um, but it was a really powerful experience, and I think this is something that I also teach of like the helicopter can come in your career, right? And when the helicopter comes, get on it and get up the mountain. If the top of the mountain is a sustained successful career, right?
Yeah.
When the hurricane comes, get on it, stay up there as long as you can, and then realize that helicopters crash and helicopters come down and helicopters drop you off and pick up somebody else. And you have to be an experienced mountaineer to be able to weather what happens, no matter how high up or down you go.
Girl, who you talking to? I tell you, one of the biggest lessons I've learned in this business is what goes up must come down. We
Hmm.
we think about, oh, I'm going up the hill, I'm going to the top, and I'm going to be at the top, and I'm going to stay at the top. No, it's jagged, and sometimes you fall further than you think you're going to fall.
Hmm.
In 2008, 2009, I had that happen when the
Hmm.
economy crashed, and several clients, big clients that I had, uh, one went bankrupt, one went out of business, and
Hmm.
suddenly I wasn't getting that. Oh, that client's gone. Oh, now I have a client that's paying me more. And that didn't happen. And
Hmm.
I realized I had to go back to what I did to get my career going is reintroduce myself to the industry, redo my demos, uh,
Hmm.
change agents, knock on some doors.
Hmm.
But you can do it. But
Yes.
I think a lot of people don't realize there are going to be ups and downs. Not everybody's going
Yes.
to have the Don LaFontaine career.
Right. And even at the highest levels. And that's, that's just true. And then everything in the industry is changing now. Everything is shifting. So we're always just riding the wave. Now the
And you
beautiful
know,
thing
I'm
about
going to say you're somewhat of a you're one of those people who has led the way by being that woman voice doing bank spots. And you've
Mhm.
been doing Subaru for
Yeah,
what, about
I've been
15 years?
a
Yeah.
voice of Subaru for 15 years.
Now,
Yeah,
is it
which is
the voice or a voice?
for a long time it was the voice. Subaru spots are blended. There's often male voices. There different spots have different things. So a
Depending
long time I was.
on who they're trying to market to.
Right, exactly, and what the story is. So I was that, and then I've been a consistent doing the tagging for voiceover or for Subaru consistently
You know, our
all along.
careers mirror each other's in many ways. I've been Alexa's
Mhm.
voice for about 20 years. Not the main voice, but every month I do some spots. And thank you, Lexus. Thank you so much. Uh,
It's really
Tish, let
blessing.
me. Your concentration of work is mostly commercials.
Mostly commercials. I do video games. I do animation. I do everything. That's commercials is mostly where. So like I did the gameplay video for GTA 5. Um, and A very funny story about that. When I did that, my son was 11, and I heard one day from the other room, like, "Hey, mom, is this you?" And I was like, "Yes," and turned that off.
So wait, did you get cool points for being on
Oh,
the?
so much street cred. Yes,
Yeah, there
so
you
much
go.
street.
There you go. So,
Um,
what's the balance of, say, commercials and video games? Animation as well?
yeah, I mean, I think uh, for me, it's probably like 75% commercial. Like it's really my realm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then things come. So
Now, and because you have an acting background, I'm sure that's why you can drop right into video games. How do you protect your voice? Believe me, I know from doing hundreds of them, it can be
yeah, yeah,
rough on
yeah.
your voice. How do you protect your voice when you're doing video games?
Um, I think a lot of protecting your voice is comes from being connected. Like a baby never loses their voice. So how are you connected to what your vocal mechanism is from that place where it knows how to take care of itself is one thing. Um, I've been known to arrive at either audiobook sessions or video game sessions with my little pharmacia. I have my spray. I
So,
have my
what's
spray.
in your pharmacia?
Um, Honey loquat syrup. Um,
Got some in my
Singer
booth.
saving, Singer saving grace. Sometimes throat coat. What else do I usually bring with me? Um, those are the main ones. I remember doing my first audiobook that I ever did. I was sick as a dog.
Mm.
I was sick as a dog, and so I had to really find the way through.
Now, this audio book that you were doing, were you going to
Mhm.
another studio and being directed, or were you doing it at your own home studio?
Yeah, no, this was back in the day. So in the glory days of audiobooks, when you'd go to the studio, you'd work with a director, and you'd be there for a couple of days, but then you'd be done. and everybody did the jobs that they were supposed to do instead of you doing all the
All the
jobs.
jobs.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I
Uh,
remember.
I've done a
I
few
remember being.
audiobooks. I do not look forward to doing more, but I'm sure sometime somebody's going to offer me a book that I'm going to really like, and I'm going to say yes again and regret it the whole way through until it's done. Oh, no, this turned out pretty nice.
Yeah, I actually love doing audiobooks. I love it. It's kind of Northwestern really has a very strong and well known in interpretation department. So interpreting literature into performance is sort of like what we had
Mm.
for dinner at Northwestern. Is really part of the curriculum there. So I remember my first audiobook class with Pat Fraley of going like, oh, I love this. But then for me, it was when things were really taking off, and I kept on going like, okay, so I love this and I love this. So let's see, I could spend this much time getting paid this much money, or I could spend this much time getting paid this much money. That's how I approached it early on in audiobooks. And then you know what, as things shifted, I was like, okay, actually how I think of audiobooks now, and I don't have enough time doing the dojo, I don't have enough time to commit to building a business of audiobooks.
Of audiobooks, yeah.
I try and do one or two, keep in the mix because I do love it. Um, but I think now the way that you can approach audiobooks, I always call it, it's like having a pot of lentils on the stove that it's always cooking, it's good protein, it's tasty work, it's good. And then, you have a couple of $1,000 coming in, because you got a book or two. So you just gotta like figure out how to find that balance. It's not a get rich quick scheme, but it's
Not at
it's
all.
steady
Well, the
and
whole
it's
career
worth.
is not a get
Yeah.
rich quick scheme unless you get you know, a deal to be the promo voice for major network, and you keep that forever.
Right. But as we said, that doesn't happen.
Yeah,
You don't keep it
there's only if I have had those
months.
gigs. I don't have one
Mhm.
right now. Uh,
Exactly. Yeah.
but
And then there'll be another.
there'll be another. But one of the things a lot of us need to learn is to become facile in as many genres as possible.
Mhm.
Sometimes, I know for me, uh, video games came along. I didn't know they were a thing. They weren't a thing when I got into this business,
Mhm. Mhm.
but I've been very successful at it. I still do
Mhm.
all the other stuff, but that's the thing I'm
Mhm.
known for now. And if somebody to ask me in 1995, uh,
Right.
that was video games. There's no voices in video games. What do you mean video games?
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Let me get a couple questions on here
Yeah.
uh,
Awesome.
from some people. Let's see, Matthew Chang.
Hey.
Uh, Tish, how did you get your first voiceover gig for animation and video games? Did you already have an animation and/or video game demo beforehand, or did you just have your commercial demo?
Oh, that's a good question. We were talking about relationships. We're talking about relationships in terms of who. My friend Andy Ralph says it's who you know and who knows you, right? So my first animation series was called Roughnecks: Starship Troopers Chronicles, and it was directed by Sue Blue,
Hmm.
and the producer was Audu Payton, Audu Padden, who I went to Northwestern with. Like he was a senior when I was a freshman, so we knew each other kind of at school. But it was kind of a combination of auditioning, but then also knowing somebody. And I believe I had done some work with Sue. I'm trying to remember. I think I studied with Sue. I did my first animation demo with Sue as we were working on Roughneck on Starship
And for those
Troopers.
who don't know, Sue Blue was one of the major animation directors through the 90s
Hmm.
and into the 2000s.
Hmm. And Sue Blue was also like the person. She has a great called word of mouth. I'm sure there's lots of lessons that are still applicable, but at the time, it was it. Like when you're a kid and you're into something and you go like, oh, I'm gonna read everything about this. Ah, like that's how I read Sue Blue's work, and then I
Yeah.
got to work with her.
Yeah, she was one of the
Um,
people I took classes with when I came to LA. You know what?
mhm.
I want to talk about the VO Dojo. This thing
Yeah,
that you founded. I love. Oh, wait, you said take your voiceover career all the way from I don't know to
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 working pro.
working
Mhm.
pro. Yeah, that's it. From I don't know to working pro. Tell me how you got started with that, how the idea came into fruition, how you put it together, and I know it's from don't know anything to now I know everything, or I don't know to working pro.
Right, we keep on going. Yeah.
But what's the philosophy? How do you work with students?
Hmm.
What are some of the jewels uh, that you use in getting people to understand how to build their career?
Hmm. Well, it's interesting because where we left off with our young heroine of having no Citibank campaign, right? That's where we left off in the storyline, and it became another. It was a horrible time. It was an incredibly intense time, and it was a time that required really digging into one's soul, right? So at first it was just like, oh, what's happening? Oh, because I hadn't any experience of things not just working out, right? And so it was
Yeah.
the first time that I went down instead of up, and I felt like T Rex hands, like I don't know what to do here. So at some point I had to go like, poof, poof, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I know this. I love this. I'm really good at this. What is it? What is it that I know? What is it that I do? And what is it that I love? And so it was this time of really going in deep and, like you said, going back to what is the basics? What is it? And at the time, I had another Northwestern related thing. As I was on this process myself, I was invited to teach a peer group through a Northwestern alumni organization. And I was like, okay, I guess I can do that. And so I put together some of these thoughts that I was thinking about. What is it that what is it that it takes? And it turned out that that same feeling that I had about voiceover when I came to it, this second calling of teaching came through of like, oh, okay, okay. And in the same way, all the disparate things that I was doing, I'm doing improv, I'm doing all these things you do as a performer came together in voiceover. All these other things that I also did in my life came together. So all the performing things. But I was also a kickboxer. Benny the Jet Urquidez is my kickboxing sensei. So I have this martial arts background. His wife is Sarah Eaglewoman. She is a medicine woman shaman that I've worked with very closely and been apprenticed to and part of her inner circle for 25 years. I'm a dressage rider. I don't have a horse right now, but like all of these things, like what is this stuff? And I came together as a teacher, and it was like, boom, this is what it is. This is what it's here for.
When you start with somebody that perhaps they've had some experience in voiceover, but they come to the VO dojo, what are the biggest misconceptions they come in with, and the biggest hurdles that they have to get over, and how do you help them?
Okay. Um, Well, first of all, at the dojo, a lot of different people come from a long walks of life. We've got some people who are very experienced performers, maybe in different realms. We've had, you know, the woman who played Christine in the Phantom of the Opera Broadway cast, has been through like we've had Broadway people. We've had, like people who are very experienced come through. So everyone's coming with different things. We have all ages of people that come and work with the dojo, from 14 to 74. Like, so everyone. So everyone's coming. Here's what we do. The foundational principle of the dojo comes from my work with Sensei Benny and Eagle Woman. That voiceover is communication, and communication is an exchange of vibrational energy. That's it. So, really, what we do is take that and then build from there, right? And that doesn't matter
Say
if
that
you went to
again.
a form.
Say that again.
Mhm. Voiceover is communication, and communication is an exchange of vibrational energy. It's the energy underneath the words that is really how we communicate. And that level of nuance and that level of connection is where the dojo starts with how we approach voiceover.
You know, um, I often tell my students that all the teachers are saying the same thing in different words. And
Hmm.
how I put that uh, to my students is we are translating the written word into the spoken word. It's not about, the words have to be said, but they are just detail of your thoughts and feelings. You have to be in the state of mind, in the attitude of, and then it'll come out right. And stop worrying about,
Exactly.
oh, let me say these words perfectly and make sure that I am
Yes.
enunciating each and no, that's not how we speak.
Yeah, because nobody. I often talk about, first of all, there's the organic and the technical, and the organic is the connection. And it's all about metaphors at the dojo. But one of the metaphors I say is we can't drive the car from our brains. We have to, our gut and our heart is what puts the car in motion,
Yeah.
and we steer. So if you're trying to drive a piece of copy from your brain, it's like a little kid sitting in the driver's seat going, like your brain's going somewhere, but it's not going anywhere. And I don't care. I don't care if it's coming from your brain. I care, and I'm moved. It's an exchange of vibrational energy. What's going on in you is now going on in me in some shape or form. That's our goal. Um, that's how we drive the car. That's how we make impactful work happen.
You know, I noticed with your VO Dojo, you have some classes that are just an invitation to see if this is for you, if you have any talent. Uh, Tell me about that and how many people uh, find that, oh, wow, this is something that I want to do, and how many kind of go, you know what? I guess this isn't for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the dojo is a holistic training center, that brings you from I don't know to working pro. We have our development division and our working pro division. So I think that's one of the other things that along the way you're going to be working with the most amazing people, and you'll learn from everybody, and it's awesome. And then sometimes you don't have a structure to put it in. Like you go like, okay, I've got this. It's like being at the grocery store and getting everything you need, but you don't have a
I
cart
don't
to
have a
put it in.
basket.
So you're like, okay, I got that from that person, but where's that? So the dojo, our curriculum is designed to be this river that flows from I don't know to working pro. We start with the you should do voiceover launchpad and workout is our foundational class. And it's designed to give a comprehensive overview and a little taste of everywhere you can be making money with your voice. And some of the things we say there is, first of all, no one cares if you do this or not. I'll just be really blunt. Like, and if you want to do it, you can find a way to do it, right?
Yeah.
So we have to make that decision. Um, yeah, and so Launchpad and Workout is designed to give you a playground. Like, here's everything that's possible. Let's try it and see how it feels. And then we also like lay down foundations and then explore how the genres work together, because I think sometimes people find a way in, like, oh, I came in through commercials, but I didn't know anything about this and this and this. So with Launchpad and Workout, we lay out, okay, all of it goes together. It goes back to what you're saying, Dave, about diversifying your portfolio now more than ever. It's really important to be able to recognize all the genres, understand when the opportunities come, how to approach them, and then which ones are which ones are the ones that make total sense. Like, of course you're going to do this.
Yeah.
You're a nurse or a teacher. Let's do medical narration, right? Like,
Yeah.
the things that make sense.
Sometimes the industry chooses what it wants from you. You may think,
Yes.
"Oh yeah, I want to go into this," and but that door won't open, but suddenly something that is about you that perhaps you don't even recognize because something
Yes.
that the business wants from you.
Yeah. And then also, I mean, it's just been a couple of days since the video game strike was done. And,
Ended.
as we
Thank
were
God.
talking about before, there were ways that good-minded companies came to their senses before. So there was some work. But overall, how many auditions, like standing in solidarity. So if that's your gig, then what else is happening? If something happens on it, like, how do you try to be able to use your voice and all the things? So yeah, Launchpad and Workout is the first of 5 belt levels. That is our full training program, is called From Mystery to Mastery.
Five belts. Aww.
Yes, exactly. But very, very much like, when I was trying to explain, I was like, wait, how is this? It's like, oh, it's just like martial arts. We have to start, and then we build, and then we build, and we do it together, and you have to put the time in. You don't get your belt if you don't show up to class. You have to put the hours in, and then you have to develop your skill to a certain level to be able to go to the next belt level. So we create this framework, this structure for you to develop with, and then there's a path. It's not you have to walk the path. We're there to guide you. But yeah, so it goes. Launchpad is white belt, which opens your awareness. Yellow belt is exploration. And then green belt is self exploration. So we visit the parties, we spend time hanging out at the parties. Then green belt is, what are you bringing to the party? This becomes your demo preparation. Then we move into blue belt, which is demo production. Now you're ready to create your product that you're going to bring to market. And then brown belt is integration, and that's going to be different for every person. Where do you live?
Eh,
What's your lifestyle? How much time do you have? What does your voice lend it to? How are
I
you
was going
going
to
to
say
start
probably
building?
people are going at their own pace, but typically, how long does someone who goes from start to finish? How long does it usually take them?
We work with people for 12 months at a time, because that's about how much it takes,
And
about
that's
that.
actually a short amount of time.
It's a short amount of time, and that goes back to my origin story, right? I was like, da, 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 I've been doing this for a year. I'm all set. Hold on, sister. Back to the drawing board for a second. You got it, and go deeper. It needs more. So yeah, and the way that it's set up is, everyone has their own gestation period. It's going to be different for everybody. And so it's set up so we go down the river, and how long it takes everybody, but the structure is there. And then the really cool thing, and I think this is kind of unique with the dojo, is most of the time you end training and people are like, okay, bye, good luck with that, see ya. And the dojo, when you earn your brown belt, that when you finish your brown belt, you earn your black belt, and then you cross the threshold into our working pro division, which is called the nth degree. Now you're ready. Now your work begins. You're in the nth degree, like nth degree black belt. And now what you're doing is taking your skills and building your business, right? And that is, we have our nth degree career catapult that we do twice a year. That once you have everything you need, let's put it here, spend this weekend. It's kind of like going to a conference with 15, 16 people and meeting all the same people, but having a focus and a through line. Because, when you leave a conference, you're like, ah, I got so many things, and then your brain explodes and you don't know what to do with anything. Um, so that's the idea of that. And then we have our weekly workouts. Oh, there's VO Atlanta. Yes, I was on the
Well,
commercial
you
panel.
mentioned the conference. It was a great time to throw this picture
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
And
That
by
was
the way,
really.
this was you, and this was what was this panel on? Commercials?
Yeah, this was yeah, I think it was on a commercial panel. Yeah,
Yeah.
about rocking your commercial auditions. That's what it was called. Yeah. And this is I said I hadn't been to a one of the reasons that I hadn't been out also was last year I had breast cancer.
Oh
So
my goodness.
I didn't go anywhere. That's I was just looking at how short my hair is there, but yeah, I didn't go anywhere last year. I was doing the whole chemo and surgery and radiation thing. So I'm totally fine now. But yeah, that was
God
another
bless.
reason why that was particularly thing. And that's another reason we were kind of talking about this as we started, Dave. You know, life goes on, life happens when you're doing your voiceover career, and so we need to build our we need to build our we need to build our voiceover careers with that in mind.
It's life goes on, and we have to live life. It's not all about our voiceover careers. That's a
Yes.
part of our life. That may be how we
Yes.
monetize our life, but we have to live a life.
Yeah. And I say it's a great way to make a living and it becomes a way of life. And when something is a way of life, then no matter what happens, if that job goes, if you get cancer, if something happens, it's still it's part of your way of life. So you live it. You live and breathe it. So yeah, and that's kind of what the nth degree is. Now we've got the skills. Now let's make this our way of making a living and our way of life. So we also have the weekly workouts at a working pro level, focus action forums twice a month, and then the VO Dojo Pro Fight Club. The VO Pro Fight Club is working pro workout that we do 3 times a month that brings together top-notch talent with the high caliber decision makers who hire us. We call it a fiercely friendly
Oh,
face-off
and
that
what
turns.
a wonderful way to meet some people and impress those people that do the hiring. I've seen over the last few years, one of the favorite kinds of classes to take are the classes that directors are doing and casting directors are doing.
Mhm, mhm.
And I'm going to say it's worth your time and worth your money, but you don't do those classes before you're ready because you never get a
Yep.
second chance to make a first impression.
Exactly. And that's the cool thing about there's so many cool things about Fight Club in terms of the people that are there and what happens because it really is running through the audition process, like what actually happens. So we decide who is the chosen, the decision maker decides who is the chosen one. We see the process unfold. It's very nurturing. It's not fear. It requires everything. But the cool thing about Fight Club is that it is actually part of our Mystery to Mastery program because the Mystery to Mastery program has 7 elements. So the Fight Club, the first 2 belt levels, you're a spectator, and so 3 times a month you're meeting the people, watching the people. It's like if you were at a boxing gym, you'd be watching the people who are going into to the fights. Um, and then at the second 2 belt levels, you start getting put in,
Yeah.
so you have that experience of being in there. Um, yeah, and
You
then
know,
we have the.
before we run out of time here, I
Yeah,
answered a bunch of questions with you a week or so ago,
yeah.
and it's going to be showing where, when.
Yes, yes, yes. So Dave is going to join us for our monthly Q&A, which is called Ask the Sensei. So similar. Um, and before we do Ask the Sensei, um, we do our Dojo 21 questions. So Dave answered questions that were kind of about his origin story. So we have that separately that you can take in now. And then it's the first Wednesday in July at 10 a.m. Pacific time. We'll be here and then we'll answer your questions. So it's similar format here, kind of separated into 2 things. But yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
we'll be here to answer your questions. So that's what Ask the Sensei is about, for you to bring whatever questions are keeping you, what is a question that's going to move you forward, and how
Yeah.
can we as working pros share our insights and help? I don't know, try this. Yeah.
And one of the things I like about this and that, and you can ask those questions that maybe you might feel a little embarrassed to ask, but you shouldn't because nobody knows everything. And sometimes, especially in a group setting, you might not ask that question, but hopefully somebody else will. One last question for you. Where is our industry going? What's next for voiceover?
Well, I have great faith in humanity. Sometimes it becomes a little
I
questionable
know
these days,
it's questionable now.
but I have great faith in humanity, and this concept that we the part of being human is this connection. So I do think that there is going to be voiceover. I know my son is actually working at an internship at the agency that I've been working with for a while. I told him about the internship. He got it. It wasn't, again, he wasn't because of me. But but once again, it's once you're aware, then you ask people, and anyway, he's there, and it's interesting because I'm learning a little bit more maybe than I want to know about what's happening in the advertising industry, what people are afraid of, the AI is disrupting. So I think there's going to be um, shifts, and I think we'll ride the wave just like we have with everything. And there's going to be more opportunities. They're just going to be different
Yeah.
opportunities.
We have more
Um,
opportunities now than we've ever had in
yes.
voiceover. At the same time that we have more threats uh, to the industry than we've ever had. Somehow, one way or another, we're going to come out different, but okay on the other side. I think.
Yeah, and I think going into anything, it's just a time. I was, talking to a Lyft driver who, is part of something that disrupted a thing. That Lyft driver disrupted how the
Taxi
taxi
cabs.
cab
Yeah.
with the medallion. And now the Lyft driver is being disrupted by the Waymos. And, it's like,
It was
so
those Lyft drivers that burned those Waymos.
yeah, so we all gotta. I think what is required now is to, this is something that we've done instilling at the dojo. Like, we are part of the big picture, so you got to be thinking about what is the big picture and
Yeah.
how do we serve, and then thinking ahead of, oh, okay, well, maybe we embrace AI and say, oh, well, how does AI help us get found, right? How do we, or how
I
do we
think
make
there's
sure
a
that we,
there's a place for AI in voiceover. I think it's going to take away some low end jobs.
Mhm.
If a company wants to have you listen to the rules of the company, blah blah blah, the training, whatever, those kinds of things. Um, and for those of us who are doing, if we should own our voices, our AI voices, and we can put them to work. You can hire them. They get them for
Mhm.
less than what you'd pay us live, but should be in control of that.
Yeah, and that's very much at the heart of the dojo. How do we stay empowered in ourselves? A lot of the language of how we talk about what we do has a lot of disempowering language. I'm always doing little semantic shifts, like, oh, I submit my audition. I'm like, oh, I submit to you. I have no power. I submit to you. No, I deliver my product because I'm part of this team and this effort and the solution. If it's accepted, that's great. I do not submit. Submit to representation. I submit because I need representation. You do need representation to get to certain levels of of this business, you don't need representation to have a career. And you don't look at representation like, could you stand in for me because you have all the power and I don't. No, you have
It's a
representation.
partnership.
It's you, like one of the other metaphors that I use at the dojo is, in order to break into voiceover, you need to be able to get on the freeway going 85 miles an hour with people who've been driving the Autobahn for 25 years. Can you do it?
Can you do it?
Yeah, you can. People are breaking into voiceover every day. New voices are needed. Can you do it on a scooter? No, you can't. So you have to take that. We just did a beautiful call. Oh, and this is something important to share with everybody. We did a beautiful call this morning. So we do Ask the Sensei the first Wednesday of the month, and we do another call, a free call called Get to Know VO. And today we announced our annual scholarship, which is called the Daniel Escobar Scholarship, and it's for the full. It's for the full Mystery to Mastery program, and we had the three recipients who have received it over the past 3 years, and Fabian, who is one of them, reminded of a lesson that I teach of, because when he started, he's like, we gotta go, we gotta go, we gotta go, and I showed him a video of six soldiers putting together, taking apart a Jeep and putting it back together. And I was like, okay, so you can get on the Autobahn doing that. You have a car, it has wheels, it gets you where you want to go. When you're training at the dojo, let me show you this video of a Maserati being put together. This is what it takes to make a Maserati. To work at the highest levels of this industry and sustain a career, you need to be building your Maserati. Does that mean
Be
you
the
won't get work?
Maserati.
Does that mean you won't be getting work in your Jeep or in your next iteration of your existence? No, you can. What we're building is what happens when you take the time to build your Maserati. Where can you go? How fast can you go?
There you go. And
Um,
you know what? We are over time. Try not
oh
to
my
keep
goodness.
people. Oh, the hour went by like that.
Yeah.
Uh, Tish, so good to have you on. I'm looking forward to being interviewed and talking with your audience. And thank you
Yeah.
so much for coming on. And I want to
Oh,
thank your assistant, Kelsey, who
yes.
Kelsey was keeping people informed in the chat. So
Good, good,
thank you,
good.
Kelsey. And
Well, this is a great collaboration because we got to talk here. Now come ask the sensei and we'll answer your questions that we didn't get to here. So this is a good,
there
like,
you go.
yeah,
There you go.
going with the flow. Yeah,
All
super
right.
fun,
Well,
and it's like,
I'm gonna say goodbye so I can go have my dinner and you can go have yours. And once
indeed,
again, thank you, Kelsey and Tish. Just bravo, bravo.
so much. Thank you. It's cool to be on this journey together for so long.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, Tish Hicks was my guest. So much wonderful information. I want to thank her again. And this and all the other Ask Dave Fennoy Anythings live on my YouTube channel, Dave Fennoy Voiceover Training. Please like and subscribe. If you'd like to do some coaching with me, davefennoy.com, click on the Study VO tab. And as always, I leave you with these words: book something.